Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Smashi Business Show. Today is September 12th, 2024. It is Thursday, very close to the weekend. My name is Hindal Dah, and I am here with my co-host Abdul Majid Awan. For today's business news, we have a lot on our plate, so we'll just get right into it. First off, 97 critically injured people and patients, including some requiring cancer treatment, have come to the UAE for treatment from Gaza, and they were joined by 155 family members to receive essential care. Now, the latest group of Gazans transported to the UAE include 142 children, and this is according to WAM, the state news agency. And they were flown to Abu Dhabi from Ramon Airport in occupied Palestine by way of the Karam Abu Salam border crossing. This vital initiative was carried out by the UAE in cooperation with the World Health Organization, and we even talked yesterday about the new field hospital set up by the UAE in Egypt, and we also discussed the other field hospitals set up by the UAE in the Gaza Strip and near the Gaza border with Egypt. So it's another great initiative by the UAE done to help critically injured people in the Gaza Strip due to the Gaza genocide.
That's always a nice initiative. UAE has, we've seen that throughout this Gaza genocide, the conflict that is happening near our borders in the Middle East, they've helped a lot of Gazans through water filter plants, through ambulances, through field hospitals, through movable, portable hospitals in ships.
Even essential aid being sent out.
So they're doing their best to help the people in Gaza. Apart from that, in like small business news, S4 Capital's Monks has moved his Middle East headquarters to Saudi Arabia. So Monks, which is a digital advertising arm of S4 Capital, was founded by British advertising tycoon Martin Sorrell. So Martin Sorrell, again, a billionaire, and he's an advertising name that everyone knows. He has planned now to move his headquarters, the Monk's headquarters, from Dubai to Saudi Arabia. Now, this may sound like bad news for Dubai and good news for Saudi Arabia, and it is to an extent. But what actually is the reason, which is being said by the experts, is that Saudi Arabia, it requires that if you, the decision aligns with Saudi Arabia's new headquarters program, basically requiring foreign companies to establish regional bases within the kingdom for government contracts. So this is a very strategic move. They want to move to Saudi Arabia to get government contracts, and they're trying to target the new office setup, which will be in Riyadh, by the way, will focus on delivering advertising solutions to Saudi companies, including startups, educational institutions, and the kingdom's giga projects. This was reported by Bloomberg. So it's a very strategic move.
Yeah, it will help them in the long run. And now, of course, hearing a headline like, oh, leaving Dubai sounds kind of negative, but it will help the company in the long run.
So the business's idea is that the Saudi Arabia, which is a booming market because of Saudi Vision 2030, they have giga projects going on, NEOM, Qiddiya, there's a whole list of them. So they want to provide advertising solutions for them, and those are government contracts. So without setting up a headquarter in Saudi Arabia, you can't get those contracts. So he's going after the money. It's not like he's not happy with UAE or Dubai. It's just a money move.
Right, of course, as with all businesses, that's their main priority. Let's move on to our main stories of the day. Huda Beauty considers sale of Kayali. Dubai Department of Economy and Tourism partners with Noon to boost SME growth. And ADNOC poised for $15.9 billion takeover of Covestro. Is that correct? Did I pronounce that correctly? Well,
it's a German company, so
it is a German company. Let's talk about our first topic at hand. So, Dubai-based Huda Beauty considers its sale of its fragrance division called Kayali, which is created by her sister Mona Katan, and it's exploring the sale of its fragrance division. And Goldman Sachs, one of the biggest
banking network, asset management, they have everything.
Yeah, they do. So they've been hired as an advisor for the potential sale. Now, this is being reported by Bloomberg. Huda Beauty, or the company and the brand, even the individuals haven't really commented yet. But these are just reports by Bloomberg. Now, the proceeds from this potential sale will allow Huda Beauty's founders to buy out its stake by TSG Consumer Partners, which was acquired in 2017. So it will give them the option to be more independent. So sell back
buy back
their stake by TSG Consumer Partners, and to be an independent company.
So obviously Huda Beauty, when they sold out the stake to TSG Consumer Partners, obviously they needed maybe money for more products, new product lines. There's 1 million things that you can use the money for. Expansion is one of the biggest reasons for getting partners into your business. But now I guess they've established a very good business base and they want to buy out that. So the most important or like more strategic move is to sell Kayali. It also will help them to become two independent entities.
Yes.
Right now, the Kayali brand is under Huda Beauty. So they'll become two separate entities, and obviously two separate entities doing their own business, developing their own everything, business strategies, not only products, but there's a lot behind the product as well.
Right. In that sense, there wouldn't be the issue of like division of profits. It'll be like, oh, the fragrance gets this much money because it's its own company, and then the cosmetics brand Huda Beauty would get its own profits from its own products.
And it's not just a new thing that is happening that beauty brands are doing mergers or acquisitions or sales. Recently, last year, one of the biggest sales that I saw, I was reading a case study about it. L'Oreal, which is a French brand, they bought Australian brand. The name is Aesop. I don't want to mispronounce it. So L'Oreal bought Aesop for $2.8 billion. So a French business was taking over Australian business. The funny story is Aesop owns the body, The Body Shop?
Yes.
So Aesop owns the Body Shop. That is one of their biggest brands. And L'Oreal, obviously everyone knows Maybelline and a lot of things. So Body Shop was sold to Aesop by L'Oreal. So L'Oreal sold Body Shop to Aesop. Now they're buying Aesop. So it's very complicated.
A whole party of mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that all these companies that are founded for cosmetics or beauty related brands are all kind of interconnected in some way. So
it's actually the industry is growing. We saw a report that nearly the report says that the increasing trend of merger and acquisition activity in the beauty sector, deals went by 37.5% this year. This year has seen like only 8 months now. We still have 4 months left. So within these 8 months, the merger and acquisition went up by 37.5%.
That's a huge number.
And that is because there's a lot of interest by people into these products. It's not only women, it's men also. They're more focused on their grooming and everything now. So there are more male products coming into the market as well. So that's grown the market.
Yeah, I would say the cosmetics industry or the beauty industry is very profitable because I would think that one aspect of it is because of the social media presence, and a lot of influencers, especially not even just beauty related influencers, but you'd see a lot of products being promoted on the sites, not just promoted by being asked by the brand, it's just out of the will of the influencer, because I think it attracts a lot of young people or just people in general.
Yeah, the content field, it has a whole beauty and thing, it has a whole trend, or it has a whole industry, which is the beauty content industry. Like there's room for funny content, then there's room for health and wellness. I mean, and beauty is one big part of it, or actually different from it, but a very big category in content creation.
Yeah, I mean, my Instagram feed is dominated by makeup videos. And one thing I always see is Huda Beauty's newest line of foundation. I think it's called the Blur Effect Foundation. So it's a very growing market. It's been growing for years, and a lot of people see the potential of it.
I guess more people are interested to buy. So people who have businesses, they want to expand. So again, we've talked about this idea also that expanding your brand into a region takes a lot of time. You have to set up a base, you have to find new, you have to convert a lot of consumers, not only set up, like find new consumers. A lot of consumers in certain regions are already using some brand. So converting them is a problem that's cost for any business. So it's better to just go there, buy a brand which has a very loyal customer base in that region, and then take over and move your products to the loyal customers of that brand. So it's a very smart acquisition which helps you expand as well. So this is what they're trying to do. L'Oreal did that to go into China market, because Aesop apparently had a very big share of the China market. So they did it to enter the China market. Huda Beauty, preliminary reports, this is just at the thinking stage. They're not just doing
these
it.
These are just early stages.
Yeah, these are early stages of this whole idea. They're just exploring the idea. So if they get a good bid, if they find someone who buys Kayali for a good amount, and also with these brands, since a lot of people are connected with the brands, for example, Mona Katan is related to Kayali, so they would want decisions in product making as well. So they won't just sell the business and be like, okay, it's sold now, we don't care. They want some naming rights or some product making rights also. So yeah, good move happening in the Middle East. Let's see what happens. As soon as we get an update, we'll tell you.
Let's move on to our second story. Very exciting story for SMEs. So the Dubai Department of Economy and Tourism is partnering with Noon to boost SME growth. As you all know, Noon is an e-commerce platform, and they're partnering to support the growth of SMEs in the UAE, and more specifically Dubai-based SMEs. This program is part of the Dubai Traders Initiative under the D33 economic agenda, and it aims to provide Dubai-based SMEs with digital tools and channels to help them expand locally and globally. This is, of course, a very good thing for the SME world, and we talked about SMEs yesterday, but just quickly, I'd like to say that SMEs are big contributors of the country's GDP with more than 60% of the GDP contribution, and more than 90% of businesses in the UAE are SMEs. So can you tell us more about the story?
And the partnership will also empower local businesses by providing them with digital resources and a larger platform to reach consumers. It will also support economic growth, obviously. Everything that you see in the UAE happening, every partnership is related to economic growth. And Hind talked about the D33 economic agenda. That's UAE's target. They want to get trillions of dollars into the economy by 2033, so that is D33. And this move aligns with Dubai's agenda to promote innovation and competitiveness in the SME sector. More competition in the SME sector brings better products and cheaper products, always good for the consumer.
Yes. So the Dubai Traders will offer an onboarding incentive package to encourage both first-time and experienced sellers to get online and benefit from this program. And they'll benefit from enhanced visibility on the Noon e-commerce platform. Also, Emirati sellers under this program can avail additional benefits such as personalized support through Noon's Mahalli program.
So this is what Noon is doing. This is what Dubai Department of Economy and Tourism is doing. A very good partnership and very good for SMEs. Get on board as soon as possible.
Yes. Let's move on to our final main story of the day. So ADNOC is poised for a $15.9 billion takeover of Covestro. So let me just pull up sorry.
So basically, ADNOC, Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, Abu Dhabi State Oil Company is preparing a nearly a $16 billion offer for German. It's in euros actually, euro 14.4 billion. So converting into dollars is nearly 16 billion. In dirhams, around 45 to 50 billion dirham actually, big amount. So they're trying. They have actually acquired, according to news, German polyurethane producer Covestro. In very simple words, they create a lot of stuff which is derived from plastics. So the offer includes Covestro's debt and follows over a year of discussions between the two parties. And the deal could be Europe's largest takeover of 2024. So that is why it's very important. And it's a major move for ADNOC in the chemical sector. They're already dealing in oil and gas. We've seen a lot of other moves from ADNOC in a lot of other regions. Yesterday we talked about ADNOC has signed a 15-year gas deal with Indian Oil, which is the state-owned oil company for India. So they're making a lot of moves, and this
Yeah.
is one of the biggest moves they've made right now.
It's great that ADNOC is making a name for itself in Europe. I mean, this is, like Majid said, it's Europe's largest takeover of the year, and it represents ADNOC's strategic expansion into the European chemical market, aligning with the global energy transition trend. So Covestro is also a chemical company. And if it's completed, it would be the largest cash transaction ever in the chemical industry, and the first acquisition of a DAX 40 company by a Gulf state, which is the UAE.
Yeah, so a lot of firsts and a lot of big moves, large moves happening in this deal. Also, formal offer is expected soon. The whole deal took nearly a year to finalize. They were talking about it throughout the year. Obviously, there are a lot of negotiations, a lot of offers, a lot of deal involved.
Those usually take a while.
So since it's one of the biggest deals this year, it took a lot of time, but finally it's happening. Formal offer is expected soon. Negotiations have reached an advanced stage, and the deal potentially will finalize before the end of this year. And if successful, ADNOC will gain a significant foothold in Europe's chemical market, influencing future merger and acquisition dynamics in the region. They'll become a big player in the European chemical industry region. So good for ADNOC. They're expanding beyond Middle East, entering other markets, and not only the markets which they're experts in, oil and gas, into other markets
chemicals,
so new explorations of ideas, and obviously more baskets for their eggs. So they're putting their money in places which were not thought possible, or which no one thought they would want to go to, but they are going there.
Right.
So again, very good thing. Lastly, Atlantis Resorts and Atlantis the Palm, their MD, has moved on to Win Marjan Island. It is one of the biggest moves that we've seen recently. The guy is, his name is Joe Rollins. Tom J. Rollins, he has joined Win Al Marjan Island as the COO. So it's a very big power move by Win Al Marjan Island, which is happening in Ras Al Khaimah. They're building it very fast. So as soon as it opens for business, he will be the COO, but he will be on the non-gaming operation side. He won't be linked to the casino that is being built with the resort. So he'll be on the non-gaming operation.
He also worked at Atlantis, and Atlantis is a huge thing.
Yeah. Atlantis is a huge thing. You can see Atlantis, the Palm, the old one, which is the OG one. The water park is attached to it. It was so full. There was so much demand for it that they had to build, or they built actually, Atlantis the Royal, which is a luxury resort. So it shows you that he's handled big operations, and this is one of the biggest operations that is coming to the UAE in Ras Al Khaimah, a resort plus casino. So he, I think, is the best guy to handle that stuff. That is why he was hired.
Honestly, it makes me excited to see what Ras Al Khaimah would look like in the next, let's say, even 2 years or even a year.
Because with the development of that property, a lot of other developments are taking place around it, because people living there would need accommodation, people living there would need grocery,
maybe people
malls.
would move there. Do you think a lot of people would go to Ras Al Khaimah because of all these new developments? And it is a very scenic island. Al Marjan Island is it's a very beautiful, it has a very beautiful sea surrounding it and everything.
So yeah, all of this is happening in the business news. We talked about Huda Beauty considering the sale of Kayali, which is owned by Mona Katan, perfume brand, fragrance part of Huda Beauty right now, but they're trying to separate them. We also talked about ADNOC trying to do the biggest deal in Europe this year by acquiring Covestro, and we talked about a lot of stuff. If you missed any of it,
you can always find us on all these streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Anghami. You can also find us on all the social media platforms, X, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We also have a daily newsletter coming out every morning at 6:30 a.m. And it has most of what we talk about with more information. So if you'd like to know more, you can always check out and you can subscribe to our newsletter. Also tune in a bit, because we interviewed the founder of Myco, and it's a very interesting story about Myco is a Web3 streaming platform that you can earn money by making content and by watching. So if
That's
you're
the
interested,
interesting part.
if you're interested in that, make sure to stay tuned, and we'll see you in a bit. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Joining us today, we have the founder of Myco. Myco is a Dubai-based Web3 video streaming, funding, production, and distribution platform that lets both content creators and viewers make money. Please welcome Omer Massoum.
Thank you.
Omer, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. First off, right off the bat, I want to ask you, what is Web3? How is it possible that both content creators and people who watch the videos on your platform make money?
Okay. So I think in order to explain that, I do want to elaborate a bit on the concept of Web3 because it's a fancy term.
Please do, yeah.
And a lot of people still don't really understand in simple layman terms what Web3 is, right? So if you look at the evolution of the internet, it all started with an internet where we could go and read. Mm-hmm. So we could go on a website and we could read information, right? So Web 1 was essentially just reading, whereas there was an evolution whereby now we moved into a Web 2 space with the advent of social media, whereby you could not just read content, but you could also interact on the internet. You could give feedback. So for example, if you're talking about an app or a service, you had a feedback section, you had some Q&As that you could participate in, and obviously social media, which is the likes of Facebook and Instagram, it's all two-way communication, so you could read and write. But the true evolution of empowerment is where the consumer is not just consuming, they're also co-owners, right? Yeah. So if you can read, write, and own within an ecosystem, that is Web3, and that's the simplest definition of Web3. Right. And then, all the technologies, whether you're talking about blockchain or the cryptocurrency element or decentralized finance, they are just enablers. But at the end of the day, Web3 as a concept is an ecosystem which allows the consumer to not just be a passive consumer, but actually be co-owners in the industry that they're in, right? So now when you try and apply this onto the content industry, I think there's been an evolution over the past 2 decades. So we all remember the time when we all used to consume content on TV. And we would wait.
That's way back in history.
Yeah. But if you look at it that way, it's only been like 16 years. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about 2008 is when the likes of Netflix came in. And before that, if we liked a show like, for example, Friends, we would wait on a Sunday and we would have to wait in our lounge, cancel all our plans, bring the family together and watch Friends at a time and place of their choice. Yeah. And at that time, the consumer was very simple. So as consumers, our expectation was we need more power. And at that point in time, we were happy with the power that Netflix gave us, which was, okay, now you can decide what to watch at a time and place of your choice. And the next wave, people say that Netflix became successful because it was their technology or it was their UI, UX. I believe it was just one insight. Understanding this insight that the consumer needed more empowerment at that point in time, which was this flexibility. Now happened the content creator regime. You're talking about the TikToks and the YouTubes of the world. Again, people believe it's the technology. I believe it's not the technology. I just believe that it is the next level of empowerment where now the consumer started expecting more. And they were like, okay, now we just don't need the flexibility and the power to decide what and where, but also from who. Mm-hmm. Which means that I'm not just going to watch content from an award-winning filmmaker or a journalist. I want to watch content from my next door neighbor who does like cool videos about cars, for example, right? And that's the next evolution of content that happened. And this is all happening in a very short period of time because you're talking 2008, then you're talking 2015, 16. And now, 2023, 24, we're actually sitting at the new brink, because now today's consumer wants more empowerment. They're not just happy with what they've gotten. And the next wave of empowerment is that I should actually have a financial stake within the ecosystem. I should be able to co-invest. I should be able to become a co-owner of the content that I'm consuming. I should be able to have a creative say. I should be part of the community that creates content.
So how does that work with your platform?
So on our platform, we've got a very simple economic model whereby, so let's say for YouTube, just to give you a comparison, when you go to YouTube, how it works is if there's a third-party channel on YouTube and there's advertising revenue that comes on it, YouTube would typically distribute that revenue 50-50 between the content creator, the channel owner, and themselves, right? Whereas Myco believes that the consumer also deserves a share in that economic layer, right? So we at Myco, what we do is, obviously there is content that we own or we acquire or we syndicate, in which case we are the content creator, we're the publisher ourselves. And obviously on our platform, we're the largest publisher right now. But let's say, Smashi comes and creates a channel on Myco and you start publishing content and there is advertising revenue on that. Myco will not make anything out of that as advertising revenue other than the cost of infrastructure, which is very nominal. And the revenue will be split 65-35. So 65% will go to you as the content publisher, and the remaining 35% will come into our pool, which is the consumer reward pool. And this is where we create extra engagement layers with the users, and we distribute that back to the
viewers.
What do I earn? Like if I watch an original piece from you, how much money can I make if I watch it for like 3 hours every day or something? So what is the currency like? Is it dollars? Is it some cryptocurrency?
It really depends on the value of your eyeball. So for example, if it's my video, let's say if it's my video, sitting on my channel, when you're going to come and watch that video, there will be a different advertiser targeting you. When she comes and watches that video, there will be a different advertiser that targets her. There might be a consumer who comes and watches my video and there's no advertiser that wants to show their ad to them, because everything is programmatically connected within the ecosystem, right? So all we're doing is we're basically giving you something out of the reward pool based on your contribution. So how valuable is your contribution, right?
How do you gauge that? Like how valuable I am and how valuable is she? Like
we don't have to gauge that, it's based on the Google profiles that are already saved.
So it's based on advertisers.
It's based on the, advertisers have already created these profiles. When you create a Google account, they've already identified you as a target market for brand X and Y and Z. And okay, what's the CPM that those brands are willing to pay to reach out to you? So it's all already structured. All we're using the existing structure and create a new economic model out of it, right? But also I want to talk about the fact that with Myco, it's not only about paying the consumers to watch, right? It's actually about a much bigger purpose. Because when we're creating financial empowerment for the consumer to be able to earn by watching content, they realize that now they have some financial power within the content ecosystem. So tomorrow using that, what are they going to do naturally? Once we have the regulation and the framework, obviously we're working on the regulation around this. But tomorrow we want for the consumer to be able to co-invest into the content that they consume. So today I start by earning and I realize, okay, this ecosystem allows me to be a part, a financial component of the ecosystem. Tomorrow I can come and invest into my favorite film. I can be a part of the next season that's being created. I've watched season 1 and I want to be a part of season 2. I can actually co-invest. There's a content creator who's just starting his journey. I feel, he's good and he needs some money to start his journey. Probably he wants to do a global travelogue for which he needs to raise money. He can raise money on the platform and the consumers can participate. So we already have something on the platform called Myco Lab where we got, almost 3,500 plus creators who've applied. But at this point in time, it's not the true essence of crowdfunding because we need some regulation to be built around it, which we're working on. But the moment that happens, then we have the full funnel, because now we pass power to the viewer and the viewer will essentially pass that power back to the content creators, right? Which will solve, it's a circle, which will solve the gap, because these content creators today are struggling. They don't have enough financials coming into the ecosystem. Funding is a huge problem for them. Secondly, there's a lot of barrier to entry. Even if you look at, even if you look at the popular platforms today, you know, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, not everyone makes money.
Yeah.
You know, you have to reach a certain benchmark. You have to be at a certain number of watch hours, subscribers, before you start getting monetized, you know. But a Web3 model does not think like that. A Web3 model is very pure, and it's very transparent in the sense that anyone who's part of that ecosystem needs to withdraw their share. So, for example, on Myco, if you're a content creator, you upload your first video, you get the very first view, and the very first ad impression, you deserve a share out of that.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for that benchmark, right?
Yeah, 4,000 hours on
Exactly.
YouTube,
Exactly.
3,000 subscribers,
Exactly.
all that.
Exactly.
But you've talked about smaller content creators, but there is a booming micro influencer industry. For example, if someone has 10 million views and charges like 100,000, people are distributing those 100,000 into micro influencers with 20,000 or 30,000 followers. So they get more eyeballs. So Myco is I think it's for micro influencers as well. They can always come in there.
It is.
It's most likely a very good ecosystem for them right now.
It is a very good ecosystem for anyone who has less audience than what they deserve, you know? So it's not just influencers and content creators, even for athletes. So, obviously one of our biggest markets right now, while we expand globally, you've seen the recent announcement on the funding as well. We expand globally. We are starting operations in Egypt. We're very soon starting operations in APEC. We're already based here. This is where our head office is in Dubai, but we have a very strong market in Pakistan. You know this, right? So now in Pakistan, one of the things that we're doing is we have brought audiences to athletes which were not getting audiences because everyone was investing into the big sport, which was cricket, which is the most popular sport, but no commercial value was flowing towards athletes that are in other sports like squash, football, women's football, MMA, karate, and that's where we're funneling all of that exposure to, right? So because in our ecosystem, we have this capability because we're creating more captive audience. The fact that we're giving you a part of the economic return makes you a stakeholder. When it makes you a stakeholder, you become more captive. So you're going to watch the content or the creator, which probably before that was in your tertiary set of decision making, but now they will become your primary set of decision making, right? And we've seen the results. So, for example, recently in Pakistan, we did the MMA, which was Brave. It's one of the top brands within MMA. We streamed it, and there was a very popular TV channel streaming it. Our audience was 3 times the audience of a TV channel, and that TV channel has, huge penetration within Pakistan. Same thing happens right now with English Premier League. We're the streaming partners for English Premier League in Pakistan territory. And our numbers are, ridiculously higher than the television partner, which actually is the state TV. Yeah. So obviously, PTV Sports. So this is not happening, by the way, in cricket. Yeah. In cricket, we're still getting a smaller share compared to television. But in categories such as live sports or creators that do not have enough eyeballs on the traditional mediums, that's where Myco has this capability to create an audience, a very captive audience, because you're basically creating a community around you as a creator or an athlete or a sports broadcaster.
Nice.
I want to ask you, this is such a unique concept, but how are you different from other streaming platforms, or let's say other Web3 streaming platforms?
So one point you raised that, adding on to your question that, the consumer gets some part of it. But apart from that, any other USPs that you think differentiates you from Netflix, anything like Netflix, OSN, those are very big brands, but YouTube has a creator economy.
Yeah. So I think, as I said, we remove the barriers to entry. Yeah. We still manage to give a bigger share. So we have a 65-35 split, which means the creators are still making more money than they would on a Web2 platform, because they're usually getting 45 to 50% on Web2 platforms without naming them. So again, we're still giving more. We've reduced the barriers to entry, as I said. And I think more importantly, we're giving you an opportunity to create a community around you, which is our biggest differentiator, right? And to answer your question, there is no other Web3 streaming platform at the scale that Myco operates right now globally. There is obviously people who've been trying to do it since we started doing it, but I don't think there is any competition. Our competition is Web2 video streaming platforms. It's obviously a very huge market. There's almost 5 billion video consumers digitally. This includes all AWOD and SWOD platforms combined, which is ad-based video on demand platforms, and the subscription-based video on demand platforms. It includes everything from Netflix to BN to Stars Play to the YouTubes of the world, because this is all video consumption that happens on digital. But again, our target is that entire segment, because we believe we've come up with a model which is going to challenge that entire industry and disrupt it in the coming years.
Nice.
Let's talk about your recent funding. So Myco has recently raised $10 million in its Series A funding. How do you feel about that, first of all? And also, did it reach your expectations?
Yeah, it will never reach my expectation, because as I said, the target here is much, much bigger. Because we're not just trying to create streaming platform for this region. We're trying to create something which is global. And as far as the funding is concerned, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We've created a sustainable business model, which is great for the company, it is great for the creators, it is great for the viewers. But at the end of the day, if we are to expand aggressively in all of the markets within the world, we need a lot more capital to be raised, right? So yeah, that's what we're working on.
So what's your future targets?
If you go for Series B or Series C, or
so obviously, how you name them or how you position them is not important. The way, what's really important in my opinion is what's the aspiration, right? And so when you grow in terms of your capital strategy, it's going to be a combination of fundraisers. It's also going to be a combination of some M&A plays that we're looking at right now. So a lot of the Web2 streaming platforms or video platforms that we know about are successful, but there are also a lot of those in the world who are not as successful, They have good revenues, they have a decent bottom line, but still they don't see any future because they don't have any disruption, right? So right now what Myco is working on is multiple aggregation plays in different markets. So it's not just going to be raising capital, but it's also going to be bringing Web2 streaming platforms or video platforms within the ecosystem. And that allows us to aggregate and grow much faster. Right?
Wow.
So that's what we're focusing on right now, other than the regional expansion.
Right.
So just one question that popped up into my mind. I am a normal person. I want to start content creation. You think Myco is a better option than other platforms? The Instagram, YouTube should come to Myco, and the onboarding process is pretty simple, right? I can connect my Google account and just start.
Yeah, you can. It's very easy. Either you can create a new account if you're not a Google user, but if you're a Google user, you can just connect your Google account. And it's very easy. So again, there's no simple answer to this question because it really depends on whether you're a risk taker by nature or not. And where do you stand in terms of your existing platforms? However, the great thing with Myco is, and we've proven it with numbers, is that with our captive model, what we do is that we enhance the average engagement time per session, which means that a user, for example, that goes and watches video content on average in a session by 9 minutes, on a platform like Myco that has gone up by 35 minutes, right? So our average is at 35 minutes. So
because he has a motivation behind it,
exactly,
that he is getting something out of it,
exactly,
not just content, monetary, financial.
Exactly. But it's not an either or. So what I'm trying to say is right now there's no either or. We're not saying that today we are at the scale where we're competing with these massive platforms, which essentially means that we ask you to come also and populate your content on Myco. So when you're going and publishing on the YouTubes and the Instagrams and the TikToks, all you need to do is just add one more medium and see the evolution of that medium, because what we've seen is the same content at times on Myco versus other platforms is doing well. Why? Because the consumers are preferring to consume on Myco's platform, right?
So do you think there's a potential chance of, let's say, an influencer jumping onto Myco and gaining more traction through Myco other than all the...
There is. So I'll give you a very interesting example. And actually, I'm going to ask you guys a question. So who do you guys think is the most popular content creator, or the most successful content creator in today's age, in the world today?
I would say Mr. Beast.
Mr. Beast, right?
Yeah. But I would say PewDiePie. I followed him for a lot of years.
That's true.
Yeah. So I agree with her. It's Mr. Beast, but in numbers prove that.
Oh, numbers wise, but otherwise, I think PewDiePie.
So now the next question is: do you think if Mr. Beast is the number one right now, do you think he's the best as well?
Well, that's subjective, but I think the quality of the work and the camera work and all the effort put into his videos kind of put him at like the top. I would say top 5.
Yeah.
He's figured out the algorithm. He's figured out, I guess,
Yeah.
the basic human psychology. That's what my opinion
What's
is.
that psychology? So my answer to that is he's not the best. There are others who are much better content creators in terms of quality, in terms of creative, in terms of aesthetics. Why he's number one is because he has created a community. He's working on a Web3 model. He doesn't even know what Web3 is probably.
Yeah.
But what he does is exactly a Web3 model. So he takes a part of his earnings from his advertising revenue. He throws that back into the community. He
Right.
gives them cash, cars, bikes,
Groceries.
Apple, groceries.
Anything.
So that is considered Web3 as well.
That is Web3.
Oh,
He doesn't know it, but that is Web3, right?
Okay.
And then what does he do? He invites all of them to, he does like a yacht event where there's like 2,000 fans that have been invited. He asks them to contribute to the next story. Okay, what's my next episode going to be about? You guys tell me. This is exactly what Web3 is. You're making them a part of the ecosystem beyond just passive consumption. So that's what he's doing at an individual level, and that's what we're doing at a platform level. So now to answer your question, if he can become the number one content creator in the world just because he follows a Web3 model. Now, if as a content creator, you today have an option to move into a Web3 model, obviously it's going to give you better results than a Web2 model, right?
Of course, yeah.
So, one more question, sorry. A lot of questions are popping up into my mind. So at the core of any platform where a content creator goes, whenever they're creating content, any founder of Instagram, YouTube, you ask them the question about how do you get more views, how do you get more engagement? They say the quality of content. So does that also hold true on Myco, that if your quality of content is great, you will get better?
Of course it does, but what we are saying is that a Web3 model has the capability to give incremental results, incremental metrics, whether it is retention, average engagement time, whether it is your popularity, whether it is your revenue as a creator. So we have this capability with our model to give incremental results, but at the end of the day, it is the content, right?
Also.
So at the end of the day, something very interesting also is some companies within Web3, what they do is they use this term within gaming, they use the term play to earn.
Yeah.
Right? So I have a disconnect, and I have an argument to that, because when you're saying play to earn, it basically means that my game is really bad, but just come and play because you're gonna earn, right? And that never works. That will never work in Web3. Why Myco has been so successful today is because we've given the consumers what they want to watch, right? Yes, we have all of those rising creators and filmmakers and the communities like the Film Society, Dubai, that we're supporting, but also we have the most popular sports, the cricket and the football and the MMA that people want to watch. People are looking for that content. So you also need to have the best content from a quality perspective, and that's the right model. If you're just expecting people to come and watch content because they're going to get paid, it's only going to be just as sustainable as nothing, because it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So
Name like one or two creators that you think became big on your platform, or are like the biggest people on your platform.
So again, I mean, like
there's content creator wise,
content
not
creators.
like sports or anything.
So yeah, there's a channel called Food Fusion, which is like doing really well.
Yeah, Food Fusion. I also see them for a lot of recipes.
Yeah, it's doing really well on Myco. And
any individual, like someone who is just telling, oh, I did this today or I did that today. Daily vlog people, anyone?
So again, most of them are like, so for example, Junaid, is there on the platform, Junaid Akram.
Yeah.
So as I said, right now our largest audience base is in Pakistan. So a lot of the names that I'm going to give you from a success perspective are Pakistan. But yes, this is exactly what we're working on, because we want this to become a global phenomenon.
So you'll have an outreach program in the future to attract like influencers from every country, like UAE, obviously Dubai, Mo Vlogs, all these guys. Do you have an outreach?
So we're working on hero content. So we don't want to go into a country and aggressively ask the content creators unless and until we also have hero content or a real true expansion strategy, right? So now, for example, when we're going with a focus approach within Egypt, for example, so the first thing we're going to do is pick up the most popular live sports in Egypt. We're already working on some of those rights acquisitions. So some of the popular rights sports, for example, in Egypt, obviously, football is there, but there's also handball, there's squash. There's a lot of esports that's popular, some of the gaming brands are really popular there from a live streaming perspective. So we're going to aggregate all of that, and then once we have an audience set, then we're going to ask the content creators to come and start uploading content, right? Because unless there is an audience base, unless there is a local ad network which is successful and there are impressions being booked, if we bring in the top content creators, let's say we go to Saudi Arabia now and we pick up the largest content creator in Saudi Arabia, until we have established a market for ourselves there, the content creator will not get the right results.
And
right?
then obviously they won't like it.
Exactly. So we have to be very careful on when we bring them on board. And that's the strategy, you know.
So in Pakistan, you've like nearly achieved that. You've brought the biggest names. So now UAE, next step, and then
so
Egypt
UAE, Egypt, as I said, APEC is an area of expansion. We're also expanding into North America. So we offered our first SWAT subscription-based offering in North America with the Cricket World Cup that started in June. But that's a slightly different model because, you know, we believe that we still don't have enough over there to launch like an ad-supported model. So our model right now in North America is largely subscription-based, and it's focused on sports. And we're going to expand onto that. But once we reach a minimum mass and a minimum scale, then we'll obviously move into an AWOD model over there as well.
Okay, this is a very personal question. I know you won't answer it maybe, but can you tell us your revenue growth like over the period of years in percentage? I know it's a very difficult question to answer in terms of number, but do you think it's growing and it's growing?
So we grew by almost 300% between, let's say, the last fiscal year, which was fiscal year 2022-23 versus 23-24. The one that we just concluded in June, we grew our revenue by almost 300%.
And with expansion, more?
So again, I believe, you know, this is at the end of the day, it's an idea whose time has come. And if we can make the right strategic choices in terms of our expansion narrative, we will continue to see a 300% growth or a 400% growth every year.
That's nice. Good to hear. And it's actually very good because a lot of people don't answer this question, but you answered it very nicely. Thank you so much, Omer.
Thank you so much. So let's just wrap up. So if you missed the first half of the interview, you can always find us on all the streaming platforms like Spotify, Anghami, and Apple Podcast. You can also find us on all the social media platforms like TikTok, YouTube, X, Facebook, and Instagram, most importantly. We also have a daily newsletter out that comes out at 6:30 a.m. every morning. Thank you so much once again for the founder of Myco on the show, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Go check out the app.
Go check out the app, yes.